worries. I'm happy to talk with. I mean, as long as there's one person interested, I'm happy to talk. And like I've never been to Bulgaria. I was invited to this podcast festival a couple of years ago, but then the COVID started, and so I participated online then. And now I'm here. Here I am online again. Maybe one day I'll be able to visit you. You are based in Sofia, I imagine, right?
Yes, our network is based in Sofia. We are something like an informal network of podcasts that are related to different social causes. That's why we really wanted to connect with you and see, because we have people working on the LGBTQ plus rights here. We have some people who are working more on the how to be an active volunteer and active citizen, and how to like practice your right to vote and to participate in society. We work a lot on also like disinformation and fake news that are present right now a lot in Bulgarian media, and not only, of course. So we kind of have this kind of scope of different social directions. So yeah, that's why I wanted to.
Sounds interesting, and I think there's a lot of like points that we are working on similar stuff as well. I see also Costa here, right? Hi, Costa. Can I hear something more about you?
Yes. Originally, I'm an artist, a filmmaker, director, and choreographer, but I also have dabbled in media. I founded one of the few LGBTQ medias here in Bulgaria a few years ago called OutBG, which sadly folded due to the media company that was supporting it. But since then, together with a friend of mine, Simeon, who is also an activist, we started the LGBTQ podcast for culture and identity.
Nice.
It was kind of an experiment for both of us, because we've been working on, I would say, more like heavier ways to be activists, but we wanted to do something really fun. So the podcast is really playful. It's much more lighter in tone, and we've been having a small community already. So we're really excited to see where it can go, and if this kind of, more playful and fun approach can also be worthwhile.
Nice. Yeah, I'd like to listen to it. Well, I guess it's in Bulgarian language.
It's in Bulgarian to kind of combat this lack of queer content in Bulgarian, because, in English there's so much to draw from, but in Bulgarian it's still not a taboo, but there's not enough content of people just discussing queer topics in a direct way. So this is why we're really focused on doing it in Bulgarian for now.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think Lithuania is similar in a lot of ways as Bulgaria. Maybe, I think we are like on a similar path. And also, there's someone called 42 Foundation on the call. Is it like a person or just something?
I think it's maybe whoever is recording, but Vicky will know.
Yes. This is. This our network is kind of started from a foundation. This is Sasha. Yes, he can tell a little bit
Hello,
more.
Sasha.
The hidden person behind that name.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I was without a cam at the beginning, just because I was about to be late.
Oh, no worries.
Running around here.
No worries. I mean, it's a late evening. Same in Lithuania.
The main function here was that I'm just starting the meeting, then missing, and so on and so on. So
Thank you for doing that. Yeah, and I see Vladimir joined in as well. Can I say hi to Vladimir? I'll turn on the light. All right. That's okay. So I don't know how can we do this? Like I can talk about our experience in Lithuania, but maybe you can tell a little bit more about what you are trying to do, because as far as I understand, you have your own podcast network. It's called Channel 4 Podcast, right?
Yes.
So yeah, if you could tell, when did you start? How big is your team? What topics do you work? I mean, you mentioned some of the topics, but like how the whole structure works. I'm really curious to learn more.
First, I just wanted to say that usually how we do these meetings, I mean, it's easier, not easier, but maybe what we found that is working for the presenter is to just tell the story in whichever way they prefer. Like, as you said, your experience, let's say, with the podcast, the development, like the challenges that you met also locally. And then there is like a follow-up questions coming up from us. And I mean, the 22 Foundation actually stands behind the first basis and the foundation of the podcast Channel 4, as you said. And Channel 4 is only one of the podcasts in the podcast network. It deals with kind of 4 directions. It has 4 different rubrics. It consists of a team of volunteers who are like young people who are chosen through something like a competition, but then with a recommendation in the later on seasons. And the 4 directions are related to ecology, to critical thinking and like civic rights and active citizenship in a way, also to culture in a more independent way. And the 4th one is to more social causes that are happening around Bulgaria. So we'll try to cover kind of these topics mostly with guests who are experts or practicing in a way, so we can present these examples to our audience. And I mean, the other people who are part of the network, Costa already presented some of his work with the podcast that he's doing with Simeon, that is related to LGBTQ+ community in Bulgaria. And I mentioned also the podcast that is related to volunteering and how you can be like an active volunteer who can contribute to society, and also how this helps your personal development. We also have one podcast that is about how to deal. It's called Concordia. It's a little bit putting the questions about people from vulnerable groups. For example, orphans and people who are really in the margins of society, and what are the options for them, let's say, on the labor market, on some other possibilities that can be open and they don't know about, or the people who are taking care of them don't know about, because there is a very big stigma that is related to that in Bulgaria, to people with from vulnerable groups with disabilities, and it's very hard to talk about in any kind of public space. They're always presented very negatively in the media as well. And we have one podcast that is very connected to literature, that is dealing concretely with kind of literature cases, but also has this kind of social direction of how people connect with literature and how it can help, like for them to build, let's say, again on social topics that they would like to develop, but with the power and with the help of literature. And and maybe the last one that I will mention is a new podcast that joined just this year. That's called like an urban detective, and they explore urban places in Sofia that has a certain kind of history. That is more like a curiosity podcast about storytelling, but it's also very interesting because it touches upon like the context of before and how these historic places are reimagined right now, like in the community, and what they relate to their significance right now. And also there is a lot of kind of social direction there, because we have a very controversial history with with establishing some urban parks, and it's very interesting to see this all narrated from a contemporary point of view. So without a bias. So that's why this podcast joined. So more or less we try to maintain a network of socially directed podcasts, but also, we also try to, they try to kind of reach an audience that can help them build upon that content, but also be provocative and challenging, and not only like giving information, which is sometimes the hard part when you work with social causes and you try to engage people on that. And the topics just wanted to share with you. I told you from from in my first email, but we really want to know, because most of the podcasts are very young, or they started, but they're at some point that they don't know how to continue or how to improve their product, kind of. We're really looking forward to know, because I know that, I at least I read about that your podcast and like your media in general has this kind of very big group of supporters and donations. And I think that for us, the monetization part or even the community building part is very important, like to know how you can attract people to connect with your purpose and to really help you in the long run. So these are maybe the two most important topics for us, and because it's I think it's one of the hardest thing to maintain when it comes to consistency. So yeah
definitely sounds very interesting. And it seems that you this podcast collective is pretty like young, and but there's a lot of different directions you're going, and it's very good that you are supporting each other and try to present it as a collective rather than just going individual ways. I don't think we have anything similar in Lithuania. We tend to work on like different organizations just work on their own thing. We have some experience with monetization. I can talk about that. And also, I think I can share some of our learnings, what worked for us during our time with podcasts. We started in 2017, and we're still going. So I'm pretty proud of that, because I think it's hard to make a podcast sustainable, but there are ways for doing that. I can let's check if I can share screen. If you could just allow me to do that, Victoria, that would be useful.
I will do it.
Yes.
Oh, thank you for doing that. All right. So just to understand, okay, I can do it now. Thank you. Just to understand it. So all of you are working voluntarily, or do you make money somehow? What's the situation?
Unfortunately, we don't.
Yes.
Okay.
Working voluntarily. And for example, just to tell you, the podcast Channel 4 that kind of co-initiated this network, it's been active for 2 years now, and still like there's no income. And also, with the meetings that we already have with some of the lecturers, and some of the people that we invite and really want to communicate with, they always say that maybe sometimes you have to do it like a conscious purpose to kind of raise money in a way. Maybe we've never really been that much focused on that. We've always been focusing on the content, or how to provide and reach people, but never like on the moment when you consciously and consistently ask in a way for money, or try to make a strong message that they will support your work. And maybe that's one of the reasons I just want to make a disclaimer that I don't know how hard we try it. That's the
So now your main motivation is to get your word out, have some fun while doing a podcast, just do some interviews that you like, which is totally fine. I myself, I started from like student radio, and it's just, I think that's how it should be. Just if it's not fun for you, if you don't have any other like motivation apart from financial, then your podcast wouldn't work. But of course, you need to make it sustainable to make it work. All right. Let me share my screen. This is your website. Yeah. So, and this is ours. So let me start from the beginning. So our organization is called NARA, NARA, and at this point we started as a. Well, that's not exactly true, actually, because before me joining the organization, there was a group of journalists who worked on these big multimedia projects that was a new thing in Lithuania at the time, and I can show some of them. For example, this is the project about Paralympians, with lots of text, with like videos, photographies. So there was a group of journalists who were working on like telling one story, but in like this very massive format, pretty deep. There were some other projects in that way as well. For example, this was the very first one. It was about this women prison in Lithuania. Again, there's a collection of photos. There's like a big article. There's some videos. So that was the start of our organization. But then what happened is that people realized that creating something like this just takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, and you cannot really, like, you need something more, that you need to update your website more often. And then at that time I was working at Lithuania National Radio, and having my own show at another radio station. I was kind of this freelancer working with audio, and podcasts were like a new thing. It was it was the year was 2017, and the whole wave of like American podcasts kind of reached Lithuania. All these like NPR shows like Serial, This American Life, all those like classic examples became kind of popular in Lithuania. And me as a journalist, I was listening to them, and I thought it would be cool to do something like this in Lithuanian language, because just like you in Bulgaria, we have our own language, and there's a certain limitation to that, right? Because there's only so many people in the world who understand it. But also, it's nice to do something in your own language and keep the language alive. And yeah, I like the idea of doing that. All right, so then we started our podcast, and it eventually became our main thing that we do. Our organization became known as like, those people who do podcasts. But then we thought we need to do something else as well. So now we have like these different formats in our website. We do articles, we do like videos, we do something called photo stories. Like our organization has always have this big focus on visual part. Even when we do podcasts, we try to have good photographs alongside with them. For example, this is a recent photo story from Ukraine, where our reporter went together with this guy who was like a professional clown, and they were in Kharkiv. And just kind of that was a story about this clown helping children during the war. So this wasn't a audio story, though we did the audio recording of the article so people can listen to it. But I'm showing this just to show that kind of the strange trajectory that our organization went, trying different formats to produce our journalism. We also work in different languages. We have English and Russian version. So Russian language is not really updated at this point, not because of political reasons, but because of our journalist who mostly worked on it. He went to work for national broadcaster. So yeah, we don't really have people now doing that regularly. And with English, yeah, we have our content in English as well, though it's not that, we don't produce it that often. All right, so how our podcast became a thing and how it kind of reached the listeners. The very first story that opened a lot of doors for us was this one. So again, the year is 2017, and at that time, the Me Too movement started, and we got interviews from these two women, and how one film director, a very famous film director in Lithuania, how he was like working very unethically, and there were some sexual behavior accusations as well. And they didn't really speak to any other media in Lithuania because they didn't really trust it, but because they know one of them is called Julia, another name is Paule. So Julia and Paule didn't really trust traditional news websites, and our podcast was like the safe space to give deeper, to give more like longer interview with your own voice, but without we have their portraits, but we don't really have a video or anything. We also make these testimonies, like we wrote them down so people could read them. Because a lot of people were interested in this story in Lithuania, it became like our podcast became like a main source to hear them speak. It even reached like international audience. So the Hollywood Reporter reported on that story. The director's name was Šarūnas Bartas. So we got that. Also, what we did at that time, we tried to make some audio documentaries. I guess the best example of this was about Roma children in Lithuania. So we have this big, like, the Roma community, also known as like gypsy community, is very small but very very isolated from the whole society, really. And there was this daycare center where Roma kids together with like Lithuanian kids could just do their homework, just play together, kind of learn, just have fun and just be together. So we spent some time in that center. Again, we did some photos, and we did this audio documentary with the people there. For example, this is how it looked like. It's just me interviewing one of the people at the center. This is our sound colleague working with the sound. Again, we did some photos, kind of following the story. And this was something new in Lithuanian media. Of course, Lithuanian national radio, I should say actually Lithuanian public radio, they were doing these audio documentaries before, but our approach felt maybe more fresh because we had like new voices. Maybe we used different kind of music. We used different kind of editing. Just at that time, it felt fresh. So we got we got more listeners, and we would always have some partners. We would try to get partners for the episode. So in terms of financing our journalism, for example, this episode was in partnership with Lithuanian Human Rights Center. So they were doing some kind of project that they got some money to talk about Roma community. And our agreement was that we can do the podcast documentary and we want you to finance it, but we refuse to take any, like we need to keep our independence, like complete independence to who are we interviewing, how we are reporting on a story. So of course it's always tricky because you don't know if people are making influence to you or not, but this was one of the ways for us to survive, to partner with different organizations who care about the same things that we do, and try to get some projects to get some funding. All right, some more examples of what worked for us in terms of audience, and then I will move to monetization. By the way, can you hear me well? Is everything fine? Am I speaking is it possible to understand what I'm talking? Thank you.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. It's not that often I speak in English. I had a chance to study in New York last year with this Fulbright scholarship. By the way, if anyone wants to want to try to study in the US, it's a good way to do that. I think it should be available in Bulgaria as well. There was one Bulgarian journalist, her name is Boriana, I think. Anyone knows her? She was one of the organizers of the Sofia Podcasting Festival. So she was in the same university as me. Anyway, so but now I'm back in Lithuania and I don't use English that often. So but I'm glad you can understand. So kind of strangely, the thing that worked for us was a different thing from what we started. So we started with these kind of heavier journalistic stories. And our podcast was always people know that it's, when you listen to it, you will hear something important, but it can be pretty hard to listen to, because the stories are not we try to go talk about those topics that are hard to talk about, such as inequality, or like in Me Too case, sexual misconduct, all these things that are heavy, and you need to kind of prepare yourself to listen to them. So we got a lot of recognition for that, but we didn't really think that we really raised our listener numbers where these episodes that we did together with this man named Andrius Vишняускас, and he's a professional psychologist, and this is Berta, one of our co-founders, and they two are good friends, and they started doing these special episodes special episodes about psychology, really. For example, this one is about friendship. Basically, for the whole hour, they just speak about how to be a good friend, how friendship works, why friends exist in our lives, like what's the purpose of friendship. And again, we made these episodes, and we have this like nice package. Our colleague who's an illustrator did this nice like illustration for the episode. So I think people valued the whole package that we would provide, but also the sound itself and the just natural conversation of two friends. People just liked it, and we did more of these. Like this one, for example, is about the relation with parents, like how our relation with parents affect us. Or what else do we have here? This one is about anxiety and like how to deal with that. So yeah, these are like very practical conversations, and they were like one of the most like popular episodes that we ever did. And so we're still running them sometimes. What else do I have here? This is one of the English episodes. So what I like about podcasting and kind of running your own news organization is that you can choose who you want to interview, what angles can you choose. That's such a big asset, because you don't have an editor who you need to convince that the story is important. So it gives you a lot of freedom. So for example, with this interview, I'm really happy I managed to do that. When I was in the US, I met this man named Samuel Buck. He's a painter living in Boston, and I was in his studio. This is how he's like 84 at this point. This is how the interview looked like. I just had these two microphones with me. And why Buck was important for me, because he's from the same city as I am, in Vilnius. But he needed to leave the city as a child together with his mom, because the war started here, and he was from a Jewish family, and all the Jews basically needed to escape Vilnius, otherwise they were killed. And it's such a big trauma that Lithuanians are still like trying to cope with that, and he's one of the few survivors. So yeah, I managed to interview him. We could do the interview, did some photos, just really refreshing to know that you are, in this case, I was in the US. I knew that there is this man that I can interview, and when you have your own platform to do that, it just feels really good to allow those conversations to happen. So it's good that you have your own platform as well. Again, one of the more important, like popular interviews that we did is with this man named Haris. He's one of the few openly trans people in Lithuania. So it's such a like rare topic to talk about. So he was open about it. So this was my colleague Indra doing the interview at his house. So yeah, that was an important story. People were interested because there was something new to hear these conversations in the Lithuanian language. This is a nice example because so this interview with one artist, her name is Maria Nemchenko, and the whole conversation really was about her coming back to Lithuania after some years like many years living in Scotland as an artist and doing some research there. But how we got people interested in this story, because Maria herself, she's not that like famous. She's doing like great work, but she wasn't that known in Lithuania. But we found out that she's also like a multi like she practices like professionally the sport, and our colleague just did this series of photos that we used for promotion of the episode, so that worked really well. Yeah, I guess the lesson is that no matter how good your sound is, if you have good visuals, that helps. The episode on COVID, we talk with different young doctors who basically just graduated and needed to work on COVID cases. So again, we got big access to them. We asked them to record their like diaries, audio diaries on their phone. How are they feeling after the day's work? I'm really happy about this episode, because at that time people were kind of fed up with COVID, but doctors were still like working super hard. So I thought it was important to hear from them. We sometimes just do these interviews with people that we like. For example, this is a famous Lithuanian singer. His name is Andrius Mamontovas. So again, when you have your own platform, you can just, I don't know, decide that you want to interview him. We agreed that on the time. We visited him at his home and recorded an interview. Interview with Belarusians in Vilnius after the protests started there a couple of years ago. An episode on people in Ukraine when the war started there. This one is in English. What else do we have here? Yeah. Just different examples. Anyway, so I show these examples just to kind of give you some understanding of what topics are we interested in. And regarding the monetization, so at this point, in our website, we have these different ways to how can you support our work, not only a podcast, but the whole operation. So our main tool is called Contribui. This is like the Lithuanian version of Patreon. When the war in Ukraine started, Lithuanian organizations kind of collectively left Patreon because there was a situation when Patreon suspended funds for this Ukrainian NGO, and it was like a protest to not use Patreon anymore. Our fans basically said that if Patreon is doing that, we don't want to give money to Patreon using Patreon. And Contribui was this local alternative. So at this point, we have around 2,000 euros per month from almost 300 people. It's a maybe interesting thing because we have more and more these partnerships, or we win like different bigger like funds, journalistic funds. People kind of see that we're doing kind of okay financially, so our support is not getting bigger the way it used to be, which kind of concerns me, because I think the most sustainable way is just to make people interested in your work and just give you money directly. That's just such a like unique connection between your fans and your journalism. What else do we have? Like right now we have these things called basically we need to declare our taxes. Actually today is the very deadline to do that, and you can give 1.2% of your income tax to any NGO in Lithuania. So our organization is one of the NGOs. We work as a nonprofit. So people give us their taxes basically. And at least that 1%, 1.2%. So that from this source, we collect quite a lot of money. We also have some like traditional advertising. Some people just make direct bank transfers to our work, and some people are called mecenati and partners, like this, I don't know what's the word in English, like these like big funders. Just kind of, sometimes there were people who would just give us some, I don't know, some 2,000 euros, like just for as a donation. Really, it happens very rarely, but sometimes happens. So I guess the model is like this: you need to do good journalism, and you need to do it quite long. Like in our case, we needed, to make our work sustainable, it took at least, like, I don't know, 3 years, I guess. We starting to make money from the very beginning, but it wasn't enough for the whole team. So you produce good journalism that people care about, and then you ask them to basically give you money, and some of them do that. The last thing I want to mention is that this is some statistics from our podcast, is that a lot of, even though you produce journalism in your own language, a lot of the people that, and you work in your own country, a lot of people who will be listening to you, they are not necessarily living in your country. Like in our case, this is from, like, I think last, I don't know, I don't remember what's the time frame for this, but as you see, like, only 70% of our listeners are physically in Lithuania. Others are in UK, in US, Denmark, Germany, other countries. What it actually means is that these people are Lithuanians who speak our language, but who live in different parts of the world, but who still want to connect with what's happening in Lithuania. And as far as I know, Bulgaria also has, like, a big immigrant community. So if you could somehow tackle those people to fund your journalism, that would be good, because usually if you live in, I don't know, somewhere in Denmark, to give you 10 euros per month, it's easier than if you live in Lithuania, because the salaries are different. So a lot of our contribute supporters, they are Lithuanians living in different countries where they basically earn more money and can give some of that money to journalists. So that's what we do, and I guess I can move to questions.
Thank you so much for that. I can see that, I mean, from what you presented, it's really kind of important to combine different medias. It's not only audio sometimes, but it's important to also tell a story with different means. And I think that also insights that we may take is really related to being consistent in what you do, and maybe setting expectations for your audience that you can live up to after that, so people know what to expect and not be, like, disappointed or like being irregular and so on. So it's very nice that your team is doing so well, and I'm very happy for the support that you receive.
Thank you. I mean, it's not that I wish it would be bigger, but I mean, at least at this point, at least 3 of us at the very core team, we can basically make our living from NARA, which is a lot, I think. And then we have a lot of people who are doing something connected with our project. Like, some people help with photographs, some people are like illustrators, some people are like can help with the sound. We have our own, like, music composer who sometimes just creates. Of course, we pay him, but it's I don't think he's driven because of the money. It's more about, like, just creating this project. So there's, I think it's important. I understand. I wish all those people would be like full-time workers for us, but that's just impossible at this point. But it's important to kind of collect to have this, like, big community of people working with you. Costa, you have a question?
Yes. I guess I have 2 questions. First is,
Sure.
Would you say in the beginning you were focused more on one specific issue or one topic? Because from the things you presented, it's quite impressive, I would say the range of areas. But in the beginning, was there one topic that kind of you were covering and people responded to that, and from there you grew, or was it as diverse from the beginning? And then my other question is, maybe you covered this a little bit, but specifically with the incorporating visuals so much, was this something also that was an added layer, or from the beginning was the visual identity something that you think also set you apart from other media?
Yeah, thank you. Regarding the topics, I don't know, like I still kind of struggle with that, because as journalists, we are interested in like a lot of things, and those things are pretty different. For example, like this week I did the episode on so we have the situation with the border with Belarus, where a lot of migrants were coming there in last year, and there was still like this problem with like what to do with those people, and like at the same time, like my colleague were working on a completely different story. Like it's just that it's kind of really inconsistent, which is advantage and disadvantage at the same time. For example, if you are doing this podcast on queer issues in Bulgaria, people kind of know what they can expect. And in our case, people sometimes they don't know what kind of language the episode will be in, what kind of topic, even who. Sometimes the whole. Usually I'm hosting it, but sometimes my colleagues are doing that if this is like their episode. This is like, we are very, it kind of goes against these rules in podcasting where you need to have like some kind of standard that you set up and people know what to expect. In our case, sometimes people are happy, sometimes people are, like, maybe it's an interesting topic, but like, this is not what I care about. So, I guess I know there are certain topics that we are really interested, like always interested in, like the whole like ecology question, and like we have a lot of like problem with after like EU funded renovations of the cities, we had all like trees cut down, and we would always be interested in like these green spaces in Lithuania, or like like the human rights questions, they would always be interesting. But at the same time, like I worked as a music journalist, for example, for like a couple of years, and I would be just going and writing like music reviews, and I would still want to do that. And sometimes in podcasts, I interview like just artists. So we never really set up on some topics that we cover. We cover issues, like social issues, but it could be more specific. And regarding the visual part, so we just noticed that it's because a lot of our listeners, especially new people, how do you attract new people? We use social media for that, especially Instagram was working good for us, and it's a very visual medium. So for example, again, let me share screen. If I go to our Instagram account, what do we have here? Yeah, so there's a lot of visual stuff. Like sometimes we do the interview, and then we do some kind of stories, like this, for example. Yeah, some kind of nice art with it. Or for example, this one. Yeah, with some quotes. I think we changed the font recently, so now our quotes look like this. Yeah, so it just attracts people to our journalism. But at the same time, it just requires so much more time. Like each of these like tasks, to do a photo, to do some kind of design, to decide what quote do you want to use, is just so exhausting. I must say that, because you feel that you publish the story, the episode is out, and you think, okay, my job is done, but it's not true. You have like additional day to work on promoting a story, and yeah, but I guess that's just reality. You need to bring your journalism to people somehow. So we are trying to find ways to do that, but it is hard. But visuals definitely help. Yeah.
I'm sorry, just jumping up here. Do you use like paid promotion sometimes in social media? That's something that I wanted to ask in relation.
Sometimes. But the issue is that if a topic is very political, then Facebook kind of don't allow you to do that. So there's a lot of restrictions, and I remember that. Yeah, that's. But sometimes we do that. We did that, and one of our listeners, who also, like, he was our Patreon supporter, he was working on Facebook at the time, and he got some kind of money where every month he could spend on some kind of promotion. So he would just give all that money to us, so we would give a lot of like Facebook promotion through that. So yeah, that helps as well. Hello, I have a more of a technical question, asks Vladimir. What type of microphones and software do you use? All right, so I'll start with software. So we are using Reaper. Are you aware of this?
Yep, I'm aware of Reaper, but I use Audition. So, but Reaper is a bit more old school, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's very simple, and somehow we just started using it, and somehow stick with it. I don't know. I just really like Reaper. And in terms of microphones, so we don't really have any fancy microphones. Like for field recordings, I use my Zoom H4. I have different kind of mics, one of these shotgun mics. Let me try to find it.
Yeah, you have the stereo mic and the mono type, the round-shaped one.
Correct. Yeah. This is the thing that I use. And,
yeah, it's a great little machine.
Yeah, and for the studio interviews, we actually made a collaboration with the National Library of Lithuania, and they have a recording studio there. So we can use some hours of that studio in yeah, like every month we have some hours that we can use for free. So yeah, we just go to that studio, and they have nice microphones there. I don't even know what brand actually. I'm not really a technical guy. I'm more like for the lack of the better word, like storyteller. I just have my Zoom and it's fine. But I'm not that good at like the whole sound design stuff. There are some other people who do that. What microphone do you use, Vladimir?
So we use dynamic microphones, Zoom ZDM1, they're called. They're still
Nice.
cheap, like $100 or something like that, or 100 euros. Not sure about the currency of those.
Yeah.
And we also use a Zoom recording audio card. And yeah, I use Audition for the editing in software.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I'm more like geeky about different type of microphones, audio recording equipment, and yeah, it's more of a hobby and passion for me.
Yeah, it's a cool hobby. I wish I knew more about the whole like technical parts of how the microphones work and everything. I think because like sound wise, our content I think it's fine, but maybe it could be better. Yeah. Are there more questions?
I think I just had something last that came to my mind. Sorry. Okay, that was about, I mean, because you're covering, as you said from the very beginning, some very vulnerable topics sometimes, and they're not that comfortable for the society and for the media, the other medias that are kind of dependent. So I just wanted to ask, how do you deal, I mean, whether you have, I don't know, some kind of trolls or spam or like negative feedback or people turning up like against you and reacting, and just to share a little bit of your experience if you ever experienced that, because I think it's very common when you're in independent media and when you're really working with sometimes the margins.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because like this weekend was like pretty kind of scary for me. Like it never happened to me before, but I got. So after running this story on the migrants and kind of discussing the situation, like how to how should we deal with this situation, there were some people on Twitter of all places who were like really got on me, and like they tried to get into my Gmail, and like some random people started calling my number, because my number was, it's not really public, but I think it was possible to find it somewhere. And there were some really like harsh online stuff. Let me show you one thing. Look at this. That's pretty dark, right? So this is what I got.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So there was this thing called like e-police in Lithuania, where you can kind of report things. So I don't know, I guess just some random teens doing stuff, but yeah, so it can get scary. But I think what I noticed is that if you are just talking about like, I don't know, I think it gets scary when you kind of go against your government's policy, right? I don't know what are the issues in Bulgaria right now, where people would be like, that would be like hard to say openly. So in Lithuania, the question about migrants became like this thing that, because the government is kind of very with this like hardline position, that like we should just not to let anyone in. And other people were like, okay, there are some people who we have like legitimate asylum cases and we should let them in. So that's all debate pretty much. And because government has a lot of fans and people are like kind of scared that letting migrants in is like some kind of Lukashenko's, Putin's plan to destroy, like to kind of disrupt Lithuania. And I guess there's some part of that is true, definitely. So yeah, when people are scared, some of them just kind of see journalists as an enemy, and that's kind of scary. But it's like a new development. It never happened to me before. But I guess that's the consequence of the war in Ukraine, of the whole like uncertainty of the future. And I guess you are feeling those things as well. So make sure two-factor authentication is on. Make sure your passwords are safe and everything. Like those things matter, really. Even maybe it doesn't matter to you now, but like if you really be in journalism longer, you better take care of that now, so you'll be safer in the future.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm really sorry about this negative experience that you had.
I hope it's over.
So I mean, just the last thing that I'm going to mention that I saw in your website are these sections that are about merch, like about shop and education.
Oh yeah, so I didn't mention education is a big part that we do. Again, it kind of became like we were always interested in kind of changing people in Lithuania understanding of journalism, like to show different ways of how journalism could be. And so there's a lot of like informal education initiatives that we sometimes join. Berta, one of our co-founders, she's teaching at Vilnius University. I myself, I'm starting to teach this like class, actual audio journalism next semester, starting at Vilnius University. Pretty excited about that. So yeah, I guess it's one of the things that we do, that just teach like these media education classes. And regarding the merch, it's still kind of a new thing. So we made these like t-shirts, we made these not hoodies. What's the word for a hoodie without a hoodie? Like just some kind of shirt, right, with our logo. So some people bought them, but we should promote it more. And also we sell our photos, the like photos of our photographers. So that's another way to earn some money. So yeah, like if you have a strong brand, and NARA kind of became like a known brand, maybe people want to buy stuff from you, can be another source of income. But we're just starting with that, and we haven't really promoted it properly. So I cannot tell you anything smart about it, because it's a new territory for me. But I guess the lesson is that as a journalist, you kind of need to become almost like a businessman, and just like a lot of different things that you do. But it's fun. It's I don't know. Yeah, you just try things and see what works and what doesn't.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think I will take this one, like to be a businessman in your practice. And I also promise that we will find a way to bring you to Bulgaria. You said that it's always online.
Oh, I'd love to. I've heard Sofia is beautiful.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, I think that there are no more questions. Thank you so much for your time and for everything that you shared with us. It was very valuable, and we will share the recording with our community. We can also send it to you if it will be of any help, if you want to use it for something.
Yeah, why not? Maybe someone else would be interested in hearing that. I'm so curious to see how it how it sounds. Yeah. So really, I understand we have a really short time, and we're like in different countries. So I guess the lesson that I'm taking, that you are there, you are like-minded people. We're doing some similar work. So it's important to build these networks. Maybe one day we will collaborate. Maybe who knows what happens. But it's important to know that you're not alone in this profession. It's important to have colleagues, and I really value your invitation. Really means a lot to me, and I want to thank you for that.
We are very thankful for that as well, that you accepted it. And I think it's very important to work on ways of sharing resources rather than like compete or something like that. So it's very nice to hear. We will also love to collaborate further. Do you have, can you just stay for like 2 minutes more just to fix the logistics details?
Sure, of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And if anyone wants to like contact me, my email is karolis@nara.lt. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice,
thank you, everyone.
Nice evening.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.